Good morning, good afternoon, y'all. I see people are still joining, so we'll give it just one more minute to wait for everybody to join, and then we'll jump right in. All right, it's been a minute, so let's get started. I will kick it off. My name is Annie John, and I lead the IT sales team here in the US and in Canada. And I am so pleased to have you all with us this afternoon or this morning, depending on where you are. I am curious to know how many of you are already using i2 Analyst Notebook. If you just want to drop it in the chat, it would be interesting to see how many people already have some familiarity. Our goal today is to tell you about all those things beyond Analyst Notebook. Analyst Notebook, our flagship application and our platform for our solutions, and I hope that you'll enjoy seeing what i2 offers even beyond that. On the webinar with us today, we have an all-star team. We have Ryan Hoover, who leads our product management team, and Jean-Marc Vergans, who is a senior sales engineer and a tech expert in all ways. And I also want to give a shout out to 4Inc, our distributor, to thank you very much for hosting this. So without further ado, I will kick it over to Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks, Annie. And yeah, as Annie mentioned, we certainly appreciate everybody taking the time to learn a little bit today about data fusion and enrichment and those capabilities within i2. As Annie mentioned, I'm Ryan Hoover. I'm on the product management team. I've been with i2 for about 5 years now, and by background, I used i2 Analyst Notebook in the military and then also in corporate security. So it's really exciting to be on this side of the equation and helping to improve and enhance the portfolio of products that we offer to customers. So today's topic is really about data fusion and data enrichment. So to start with, it kind of makes sense to take a look at why does data fusion matter, right? So in simple terms, data fusion is really about the ability to make sense of data that comes into an analytical environment from multiple sources, right? So analysts and investigators are really operating in these exceedingly complex data environments where they have disparate sources that are feeding into their intelligence platform. These sources are really myriad and disparate. They include structured data. So think of a spreadsheet that contains called data record, or perhaps sensor data that was collected by an ISR asset. And that's one data source that comes into the analytical environment. Additionally, geolocation data. There's also unstructured content, right? So PDFs and Word documents. This can include anything from emails to intelligence reports like IIRs or SARs, depending on the mission set that you're working in. There's also a lot of publicly available records, particularly here in the US, where that information is aggregated and can also serve as a very valuable source of information for the investigation. And then the last two kind of sources that we see oftentimes are organizational data, right? So first-party data sources that need to come into that common operating picture to enhance the analysis and support the fusion workflow. And then last, but certainly not least, there are a multitude of third-party commercially available data sources that range from everything from open source intelligence to identity data. So this expanding number of technical and non-technical data sources has a requirement to be integrated, deduplicated, and then analyzed to produce comprehensive and actionable intelligence and insights. So we kind of see, artificial intelligence is inarguably transformative technology, but we believe that there still needs to be a human in the analytical loop to create explainable intelligence for decision makers. And we'll talk a little bit more about how i2 solutions can help drive these technology-enabled accelerated workflows so that the analyst or the investigator can create this holistic view of oftentimes complex situations. So how does I2 support data fusion? So one way is through the data acquisition and integration framework. This is available with two of our core product offerings. One is called I2 Analysis Studio, and the other is called I2 Analysis Hub. And I'll just mention now at the end of the call, we'll make sure that we push out additional information on what exactly those two products entail. So these solutions really enable organizations to leverage I2 as that single pane of glass that affords the analyst the ability to access data that originates from these variety of sources, and also helps the analyst to deconflict and assess this information at both the end user level. So the analyst having the ability to look at two different data points and perform that fusion on the chart surface. And then there's also options to deploy those capabilities at the system level. A few examples of connected data sources that we can bring into both Analysis Studio and Hub include, public records. So examples of existing integrations that we've built are with LexisNexis Accurate and Thomson Reuters Clear, which really supports a lot of our law enforcement customers. And then we also have emerging partnerships with open source intelligence technology providers, including Shadow Dragon and Fivecast, amongst others. So as you can see, I2 can really serve as this central analytical platform where the analyst can pull disparate data, fuse that data, and then create that common operating picture. So in addition to data fusion, one of the other things we wanted to touch on today is I2's ability to support data enrichment. Enrichment is really about not just fusing the information, but also taking existing data and information that the analyst has at their disposal and enhancing and augmenting that with additional data sources and capabilities. Just a few, this is not all encompassing. There's a lot of different data enrichment workflows, but we just wanted to touch on a couple here to kind of set the stage for what Jean-Marc's going to show. But one example is geocoding, right? So a lot of times the analyst has a data set and it may just contain a street address. Well, that's useful. There's often a need to assess pattern of life for a particular target of interest. So you need to be able to bring latitude and longitude and geospatial locational data to those street addresses to kind of form the full picture and be able to conduct that geospatial analysis. Another really powerful form of data enrichment is person enrichment, right? So oftentimes an organization, they may have an individual that lives within their first party data, but they need to find out more about that particular person. So in the connected I2 platform, the analyst is able to reach out to some of these sources that I've discussed and find additional information on that person of interest. This could be pulling in a social security number, a date of birth, or another key piece of demographic information. And then kind of the last data enrichment workflow that we wanted to highlight was, for those organizations that are conducting investigations into businesses and corporations. There's this really powerful growing set of data providers that aggregate information on corporate and financial intelligence. That offers a lot more details about a company or a particular business that might be under inquiry or review. So with I2, you can really run through a lot of different enrichment workflows to really create that holistic fused picture of intelligence. And I did want to just walk through one example. In a couple of minutes, Jean-Marc's going to do a much more in-depth live demonstration, but I just wanted to show this one example or vignette of how I2 supports geocoding in a social media investigation. So as you can see on the chart, we have what we'll call the first party organizational data that was available to the analyst. So the analyst has brought this intelligence into I2 Analyst Notebook, and they have pretty much a basic initial data set, which contains a target social media user's account activity, which also has the associated IP addresses that were connected to each of these activity events. The challenge here is now the analyst has to determine this social media account of interest and characterize the proximity of the potential threat, right? So as it stands today, right now, we don't have any geospatial data. By using a connected IP geocoding service, we can very rapidly, through the I2 data integration framework, enrich those IP addresses, right? And we can surface these additional data points, which really accelerates the analysis. So through that data enrichment process, now the investigator not only has the IP address, but he or she also has a new understanding of the location of that IP address, the domain, and then importantly, whether or not that IP address was coming through a proxied or a non-proxied source, right? So just through the connected I2 experience, that investigator can very rapidly enrich the existing organizational data to create a much more concrete picture of what's going on with that particular target account. So really, I2 has a lot of capabilities that are continuing to evolve and grow when it comes to data fusion and data enrichment. I'll turn it over to Jean-Marc to dive into the demo. But before doing so, I just wanted to make a quick plug for a few upcoming opportunities for customers and partners to engage with I2 Group. And we'd be delighted to have conversations and meet everybody face to face, which is great post-pandemic. So the first event we have upcoming is actually next week in Washington, D.C. So this is our North America User and Training Conference. It's going to have a lot of great content from breakout sessions that are really focused on analyst training to kind of product and R&D conversations around the roadmap and what's upcoming across the product portfolio with our future releases. And then we'll also have a series of keynote addresses. In addition to that, save the date, we're also going to have an event in Europe. So right now that's planned to take place in London towards the end of September. And we'd love to have all of our global customers, meet us over in the UK in what should be a really great time of the year. And then the last kind of upcoming I2 event. So if you haven't heard, we run these series of rolling tips and tricks virtual webinars where one of our training subject matter experts walks through all the different capabilities. They're really great sessions. They last for about 4 hours a piece. So the next one is on June 1st. And then we tend to generally run these on a monthly basis. It's totally free, no cost to the customer. So please, take advantage of that opportunity and share it with your peers, because we'd love to have as many people involved in that as possible. And again, we'll share the links out so that you have a direct URL to sign up for tips and tricks, or also sign up for the upcoming user conferences. So with that, I will stop sharing and hand it over to Jean-Marc, who is going to demonstrate some of the capabilities that I have just been talking about.
Okay, so Ryan, can you tell me if you can see my PowerPoint presentation?
Hey, Jean-Marc, we've got you loud and clear, and the screen is visible.
Okay, perfect. So today, in order to show some of the data collection and the data fusion capabilities, I'm just going to walk you through a very simple scenario. And let's just suppose we're working on a case involving Wanda, and where we need to analyze data from multiple sources, such as unstructured content, government database, or public records, right? Some of these silos data sources that you may be using today. And our mission is to develop a brief profiles of Wanda's network, identify key members within her network, all of that by leveraging different data sources. And really the idea of the demo is to show you how I2 can streamline access to these silos data set, fuse and enrich the data, and provide you a clear intelligence product at the end of the day. Now, before jumping in the demo, let's just look at the data we're going to consume today. And as you can see on the right top corner, somewhere around here, none of the data are representing actual people, number, or outcome. And please don't go after Wanda. I'm sure she's a wonderful person that I've never done anything bad. So to start with the demo, I'm planning to identify relevant information within a set of offender reports. So the first data source I'm going to look at will be a set of unstructured content and have our text analytics to extract any meaningful information. Then once I have gathered this information, I will use Thomson-Reuters to further analyze the data and gather additional insight. And finally, I will consult a criminal database to cross-reference the information and ensure its accuracy. And really by taking this approach, I aim to gain a comprehensive understanding of Wanda's network as well as her criminal activities. So first thing first, let's just start by looking. Let me see. I don't know if you see the banner at the top. Hopefully, I don't know if you see it or not. But let's start by looking at the raw information we're going to start with. And you may find this sample offender profile familiar, as it provides a 360-degree view of suspect information including basic, like, bio, like date of birth, occupation. But I also have things like employer, known addresses, and at the bottom, within the remarks, I have some narrative. And the idea is by analyzing a set of similar reports, we can gain valuable insight into our suspect background, lifestyle, social network, and using all of that can really help us to identify potential connection or pattern that may be relevant to the case, such as linked to other suspect or criminal activities. Now, to begin our journey, what I will do is I will create a collection of the 8 reports. You can see here, all these reports are similar to the one I've just shown you. So the way to do that is by simply creating a new collection. So just think of a collection of a document as a set of case-related information you want to analyze as a whole. So here, I'm going to create my new collection. I'm going to give it a name. From here, I'm going to click on Create, and I can select either some individual file, or I can select the folder in which I've gathered all my suspect data. I can click on Folder, and what you're going to see on the right side of the screen is the system imported the set of these 8 offender reports. Next step is just to process the collection. And I think one of the benefits of seeing a live demo is that you can actually see how long it takes to analyze and extract meaningful information from this report. So now that our collection has been created and the data has been analyzed, we can really begin to gain some insight. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to Wanda's Bello offender profile and see everything that has been extracted. So as you can see, the document is open in a simplified document viewer where each entity extracted has been color-coded for ease of visualization. For example, everything highlighted in red here represent a person, while everything highlighted in blue here is going to represent a business entity. If I want to know more about Wanda, I can click on her. And you can see on the right side of the screen, I have a list of all the information that have automatically been extracted for me. I have a normalized first name, last name. I have all the metadata properties. Let me make that just a little bit bigger. I have all the metadata properties such as gender, weight, first name, last name, date of birth. I also have all the different instances as, how she's been referred within the document, meaning she's been referred as Wanda Bello, as well as Bello, and below that I have all the different link that's going to come. So next, what I can do is straight from the viewer, I can actually right-click on Wanda and I can send her straight into my chart or workspace to continue my investigation or analysis. And since Wanda is one of the main targets in my investigation, couple of things I can do. I can augment her profile by adding pictures, putting kind of a red frame around her to make it bigger. So anybody that's going to start looking at my finding will be able to quickly highlight not only where my target is, but also what Wanda is actually looking like. So just to add the pictures, very easy, just drag and drop. I'm going to put a blue frame. Oops, sorry. I'm going to put a blue frame around her, and I'm going to make it just kind of 3 times bigger. So we know exactly where she stands for. So here, I just look at one of the offender reports. So next, let's just take a quick tour of everything else that has been extracted out of this 8 offender report. So instead of viewing every document individually, what we can use is on the right side of the screen, we can use the entities faceted view. And from this view, we can see every potential entity of interest that has been extracted, such as addresses, business, people, and thing. And I can just simply expand to see what has been extracted. Now, if I want to know and I want to visualize all these 8 persons that have been extracted, I can just right click and send all this information straight into my workspace. Let me just rearrange a little bit my chart. And I think something that's key within kind of as you start bringing data from the different data sources to be able to go back to the source information, right? So you can assess not only, you know, if the data is valid or not, but you can also assess the quality. So from here, for everything that comes from our text chart analytics feature, I can just right click, and what you're going to see is you're going to see actually two new menus that has been added. One is for showing document and the other one is expand. So if I just want to see which document that Wanda, you know, was referenced in based on my collection, I can see that not only I have the original report that, you know, I initially showed you earlier, but she's also been reported into 2 other offender reports, either as a known associate or in the narrative of the document. And for Gina Hoffman, she's just showing same thing as a known associate as well. So what I can do to validate the information that comes within my workspace, I can do that for entities, and obviously I can do that for link as well. So here I see I have a familiar link. If I want to understand the source information and the reason why this link has been created for me, I can just go back and look in the document. And if you look at the bottom, the reason why she's connected to Arthur Gomez through a relationship, simply because he, meaning Arthur Gomez, has a common living arrangement with Bondabello. So this is really how our entity extraction will help you to kind of pre-process this document and help you to identify key people within your network. So really at this point, I gather my information, and at this point in our analysis, this is where we can start looking at analytical feature, right? So here, what I want to do is I want to find, you know, who the key actors are, and a great way to start looking at, you know, who the ringleaders or gatekeeper might be is to go and start using tools such as social network analysis. So as you can see, social network analysis is from the Analyze tab, and under the options, it will show every single centrality measure we have. So centrality measures are just mathematical algorithm that's going to help to highlight information within the network structure. Here, I'm only interested in seeing, you know, who the ringleaders may be. So what I'm going to do, getting back to my social network analysis, I'm going to click on calculate, and I can see that every entity has been scored, and the highest score is here in the middle, Benny Bellatoro. So from here, here's one of my new target, just going to put a frame around him, and I'm just going to kind of double its size. And really, adding a color frame as well as pictures can really help us to quickly distinguish between different individuals, you know, within the network and gain insight into their role and position. So that's really not only a great feature, you know, if you try to present your Intel product, but it's also a great feature for you as you start gaining insight within the product you're creating. So here, just found, you know, the ringleader. So next, what I want to do is I want to gather all the information that text chart has actually extracted. I know there's more than just people. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all entities in my workspace. I'm going to right click and look at and expand. And here within the expand, you can see I can select individual entity I would like to expand on. For the demo, I'm just going to select everything and bring everything into my chart. Let me just rearrange a little bit the layout. And as you can see, we now have kind of 360-degree understanding of Wanda's network based on this offender report, because we know where she lives. If I zoom on a little bit, we know where she lives, we know who she's related to, we know who she's working for. So essentially, we were able to answer the first question within our RFI in just a couple of minutes. Now, today's demo is really to focus around, data fusion, data discovery, and data enrichment. So the next thing I want to do is I want actually to pivot to the next data source that's available to me, which is Thomson Reuters. And the goal here.
Jean-Marc, just real quick, I don't know if you want to address this now or later. I doubt you can see the Q&A, but we did have a question. So the question is, once the system identifies the links and classifies, like in this particular example, the familial relationship between Wanda and Jenna, the question is, if it's identified incorrectly, can you show how you would correct the classification or the identified relationship?
Sure, absolutely. So let me just go back to Wanda. Let me just see which document. So everything here, you have the ability to either manually remove or manually tag information. So if you want to tag, you can just select information. You can create an entity based on this information. And if the link is actually incorrect, so if I want to see here between Wanda, I can just remove the link. It's going to remove it from my collection and from the document as well. So you can either manually tag entities and link, or for any data that is actually incorrect, you can absolutely remove some of the automated extracted information. Does that answer the question?
Jean-Marc, I think that addresses the question, but we'll see. Manny, thanks for the question. We'll take everybody off mute at the end here, and we can follow up on that if needed.
Okay. Okay, sure. So again, getting back to my demo, the next step is I've looked at my offender report. So the next step is to switch to a different data source. And here, just going to look at data coming from Thomson Reuters, publicly available information. So in order for me to start looking at this external system, the way to do that is to go through external searches at the top of the screen. And since I'm accessing a server-side information, I now have to provide some credential. Hopefully, I'm not going to fat finger. Let's see. I think I'm good with that. My credentials should probably go through. And once authenticated, you will see that on the left side of the screen, I'm going to be provided with a pane with all the different data sources that I have been granted access to. And you can see some different predefined queries. And you can see that for each of the queries at the bottom, they are the data source that they are referenced to. So I have been granted access to two data sources, the National Crime Information Center data source, as well as the Thomson Reuters data source. Now, our external searches have automated threadcraft embedded in them. So depending on the selected entity, we are offered different potential queries. So for example, if I click on Wanda, if you look on the left side of the screen, you can see that the available searches have been refreshed, and that make it easier to narrow down relevant data sources for the selected entity type. So here, I still have two data sources. I can always filter the query. I'm just interested in clear, and I'm down to two potential predefined queries. So here, really what I want to do is If I double click on Wanda Bellows, I will have on the right side of the screen all the metadata properties that have been extracted for her, such as first name, last name, as well as the date of birth. So instead of start having to type the same information into a form and submit, what I'm going to do is I'm only going to select her profile, use all the information that's available as my seed and search Thomson Reuters. So I'm just going to open the search. And here I'll be provided with some, extended search criteria. Here, I just want to retrieve as well the link, so I don't have to go back and forth with my data source. And when I click on run, this is when I will retrieve real-time information from my data source. Now here I only have 15 records, but it's more likely that you may have a lot more information. So you can always filter the result down, using our faceted view. So if I'm only interested in person that have, a bankruptcy flag, I can go down from a larger data set to a narrowed down set of data. Here, just going to click the search result, just going to select everything and bring everything straight into my workspace. And this is where we're talking about data fusion, and this is kind of a first glimpse of what it actually means for the analyst. So here, the analyst is just making aware of there are fusion rules that have kicked off because there are some entities on the charts that already match some entity that we are retrieving. And as Ryan mentioned, our fusion pipeline is there to ensure to prevent duplicates and really reconcile a disparate set of data. Now, these fusion rules essentially are not a black box, right? This is not something that's done by magic. This is something that's really most often than none kind of set up by an analyst. And the way to look at some of these matching rules is to go through the find matching records. From here, you will see that there is a rules tab. And under the rule tab, you will have kind of the rule designer that will help you to build these matching rules based on entity properties. Just as an example, I can open the matching rule for a person, and you will see that I have a couple of information that I filled in, such as the name, the description. But really what matters is on what's in the middle and on the right side of the screen, which are, what are the reasons why rules will match, right? So first of them, it's just like they have to match first name and last name. And by the way, we have some kind of wiggle room when it comes to looking at string, right? We can ignore cases. We can, if it's a name, we can remove a numeric character. We can, simplify the format of the data. But the idea is that, the first step is they have to match on the first name and last name basis. And then we can also add more in the rule, right? I don't think anybody on the call will ever match two persons based on their first name, last name. I'm not even sure with adding a date of birth, but that's the idea of creating fusion rules. It's like we have a base, and then, we want to make sure that either we know the data come from a social security number. So if all these three conditions are met, data will start fusing. Same thing. If we don't have a social security number, if you just have a date of birth, we want to make sure some of these data will be merging as well. So this is really how simple, and I would say black and white, these fusion rules are, right? It's something that is really made by the analyst, and at the end, these rules are just pushed back into onto the server for ease of use.
Hey, Jean-Marc, we had
Yes.
another question come in.
Sure.
So the question is, what does the link anchor signify? What's the difference in links that are only anchor and those that are anchor and something else?
It's a good question. So let me show you. So the links anchor simply mean that if I go back to my phone. So here, the link anchor, since it's kind of a mix of structured information as well as narrative. The anchor means that's all the metadata properties that have been extracted. So the reason we see this anchor link between different entities is because either it's been extracted because it's been mentioned as employer or non-associate and so on. So that's what this anchor means. Everything else, all these familial, these are all links that have been extracted based on the narrative in the document. So because here the form is really kind of hybrid, it's form-based, and it's also kind of a structure within the narrative. That's why we have these two type of link. Anchor just mean that it's because it's information that we have found within the structure of the form, and everything else is just because it came from the narrative directly. And obviously these two can overlap. Hopefully I didn't make it more complicated than it is.
No, and actually, I think that addresses it very well, Jean-Marc. And we did have another question come in.
Okay.
So this one's around rules matching.
Yep.
And so the question is, does rules matching on name resolution rules work similar to IBase? So Michael, kind of a fuzzy match, like Michael matching to Mike, Mikey, or Robert to Rob, Bobby, etc.
So I think they're more black and white. At least the one that we can push in the back end, right? Because I think the idea is that we don't want to have rules that's, kind of going to be a black box. So they may be a little bit more black and white than, and I apologize, I don't know what the rules are within IBase, because we want to make sure that the analyst has some input. So we can probably build rules that will do something like that, but the one that I have pushed are really more like black and white. And actually, it's a great segue to the next, because rules are great, but sometimes they just don't cut when it comes to fuzzy matching searches, right? And this is where actually it's a great segue for the rest. It's like, now that I've get some more information from my Thomson Reuters clear, I can see that I have a new network that is attached to the phone number, and I have two different suspects. I mean, two different person on my chart, I would say, not suspect yet, that have kind of, that have not fused together. That's simply because the fusion matching rule did not kick off. And this is where I will probably use something like find matching entities, right? Everything that the rules do not catch, the find matching entities actually will really help with these kind of more like fuzzy matching searches and give kind of the next level of entity resolution, where the analyst may have a little bit more control over as of what they want to do or not. And actually, if you've never used the find matching entities, it's a fantastic way to look at what you have on your chart and kind of do this kind of smart matching. And you can see in the setup, we have a threshold that you can put as of what you want the system to be able to see. And if you're like me, you don't really remember what the thresholds are or how that works, we have a great, on context help. And from here, this is where I'll just, look at find and see what match. And here there is, kind of what I was expecting, that these two entities, even though they're very similar, they have a match level that is lower than 9. Why? Because if you pay just a little bit attention, we can see that they have the first name, last name, but they have a different date of birth. So that's why the fusion matching rules that I had in place did not kick off, because I don't think anybody will, have a system fusing information just based on first name, last name, and different date of birth. So that's why we try to have a different workflow based on, how the analysts want to have some input as of, how the findings are put together. And from here, of course, I can select my two entities and I've decided they are the same. In this case, it's probably somebody that did some, fat finger, because I have two very similar date of birth. One is January 2nd, the other one is February 1st. So there may be some, fat finger, even though I would not have merged them unless, they tie to the same phone number. So for me, that's kind of a strong reason why this record should be merged with each other. So hopefully that kind of answer the question as of how the matching rule works. They tend to be a little bit more rigid because we want to make sure that we capture a lot of things before it actually reach the analyst desktop, and then the analyst can kind of maybe do some triage as of what's left, because there's some input he may have that the data may not.
Thanks, Jean-Marc.
Okay, perfect. So moving on within my investigation and my quest for getting insight on Wanda's network, right? So far, I've looked at some unstructured content information, and I kind of fused that with, information coming with Thomson Reuters Clear. So here I can see that I have, some new information about the car she has, her email address, driver license, credit card number, and a company she works for. So what I want to do is I just want to expand information, on this Quinu company, and by gathering more public information about it and its employee, maybe I'll be able to gain kind of a different understanding of Wanda's network based on other information that did not come from my offender report. So really, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select Quinu, I'm going to select expand, and I'm going to create a live query to my system. I'm going to bring the information straight into my workspace. So I don't know if there's something that you notice or not, but if you look at Sandy as well as Wanda, you can see that both of them actually, I started with Wanda with a blue frame. Now she has a red frame, and that goes with what Ryan was talking about data enrichment, right? So part of our solution is we have what we call live conditional formatting, and live conditional formatting will apply visual changes to data item based on their property. So which enable me to easily spot, a key target or area of interest as new data, come or changes. So here they turn in red simply because they have some prior criminal records. If I just double click on both of their profile, there it is. I will see that, for Wanda, she has been flagged with some criminal risk. And by the way, if you remember, I just started with Wanda's profile with just, first name, last name, and date of birth. Now I have a lot more information about her. And same thing for Sandy. I can see that she has a criminal risk. Now, if I just go back to Wanda, so a couple of things I wanted to show you. So I showed you how you can just understand if the data come from unstructured content, the document that, the information came from or not. But, part of our data discovery today, took us to all the data source. So if you open the record inspector and go to the detail view, you will see that the system is actually tracking down automatically for you all the different data sources that have been used, which make it extremely easy, to just understand the provenance, the source of the information, so you can assess kind of the quality. And because we're fusing data from multiple data sources, the nodes actually automatically capture values that have been discarded, right? So you have everything within the record inspector, that is kind of your golden standard, but everything that have been discarded will be put in the node, and in the detail, you will have all the information that's available. So next part in my journey is, now I know I have two potential suspects with criminal record. So what I want to do is just want to go back to now look and pivot to the last data source, right? I just want to pivot to my criminal investigation database, my National Crime Information Center data source. And from here, just like I did, with Wanda's information, I'm just going to select Wanda's and Sandy and use both of them. Use both of their, information, including birth dates and social security number as a seed. And you can see here, I just want to expand. I'm going to click on run. So I don't have to essentially type all their BIOS information into a different system in order to retrieve them. I can just use whatever I see on the screen. And from here, I can bring that information straight into my workspace. And similar to what I had before, here the system is simply letting me know that I have some new data that are fusing with each other. And if I go back to Wanda's profile, if I go back to the detail view, I can see that now I have another source reference that has been added automatically for me. Now, a couple more things I want to do is I have a great network. I found information. So I see that both of them, again, my live conditional formatting, just formatted in red every link that have a property of suspect. So I know exactly by looking at my intelligence product where the things are. So if I want to know how these two entities are linked to each other, how these two cases are linked to each other, I can go back to my Analyze tab and maybe start using things like Find Path to see how they are related to each other. Here, pretty easy. I have 4 linked 5 entities. And what I can do is instead of continue working on this initial finding, I can just take everything that's been selected, copy that into a new chart. And from here, I can continue my data discovery. I know both of them are working for the same company. Both of them are suspect in 2 cases. So if I want to expand from my National Crime Information Center data source, I can just select them, use them as a seed essentially, and bring all the data back. Same thing, coming from data fusing, I receive notification that something is happening. Now, additionally, I don't know if you've used or not, but I too have some embedded geospatial features. So anything that have latitude and longitude value can quickly be visualized on a map. So here I have 2 addresses. I can select them and I can add them straight into my workspace. And what I can see is that both cases have happened in a close proximity. So really, with this finding, I probably now have enough information to address some of the key aspects of my initial inquiries. So what I've done is I've kind of created my final intelligence product, if you want, where I really took information from the different workspace I was able to gather and put that in more comprehensive format that I can easily distribute. So here, really, I too, if you've never used, there is a great copy paste feature. So you can copy whatever you see on the chart, from the different pane into kind of different format like a PowerPoint or Microsoft Word. And this is exactly what I've done, right? I've took the information that I gathered from my social network analysis, where I found that Benny was actually one of the ringleader, one of the gatekeeper within my network. All I did was just copy the chart, put that in a format. And here, this is kind of, the next one is Wanda's extended network. And I have not only the pictures, but I've showed you, the record inspector within Analyst Notebook. And what I've done is I've just copied, the information. It's just a right click to copy that as a text. And you can see that I have gathered all the information. So not only kind of, the metadata properties like first name, last name, or the different information she's been flagged for, but I also capture the different source of information here at the bottom. So I've captured the National Crime Information Center, the Thomson Reuters. as well as the node that's showing every information that have been merged and discarded. So you can really trace back where the information actually came from, which data sources you've touched. And the last thing is here, just want to get just one last criminal network. Again, if you've never used it, you can just select things on the chart, right click, copy that information, and instead of copying that into another, no, I don't want the designer, into another chart, you can just bring that information into kind of, you know, your final intelligence product if you want. So I know I took a little bit, you know, probably more time that's, you know, I should have, but I wanted to show you how in just 30 minutes, right, I was able to answer critical question about one does network by, you know, effectively accessing and integrating information from this multiple data source, either live data source like Thomson Reuters or at my, you know, National Crime Information Center database, or by fusing the information with data coming from my offender profile report. So really in conclusion, you know, hopefully you've seen how I2, you know, is not just, you know, a nice notebook, and how it can really help you to part in pieces a lot of the data that you are, you know, accessing today, and how you can build a coherent pictures. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you today.
Awesome. Thanks, Jean-Marc. That was awesome. So I think what we'll do here, folks, you know, we've got another 8 minutes before the session ends, so we can take anybody off mute if they'd like to ask a question, or we'll just continue to monitor the Q&A for a couple more minutes. But you know, we'd love to hear your feedback. If you're not comfortable, you know, presenting or providing it in this forum, you know, we'll make sure that we're making ourselves available to you, because you know, we want to make sure that we're guiding our solutions and our products in a way that resonates and delivers, you know, continued and additional value to our customer base. So thanks for attending, and we'll just pause here and see if there's any questions that may pop up for a minute. Hey, Manny.
Hi, Ryan. Question for JM. The features that you demonstrated, excellent features, by the way, and great demonstration. Are those included in premium, or is there an add-in for that?
Ryan,
So
do you want to?
yeah, I'll take that, Jean-Marc. Yeah, so Manny, that is everything Jean-Marc demonstrated is available in Analysis Studio. Analysis Studio is the new bundle we released, but it's essentially what was previously known as Analyst Notebook Premium. So all of the connectors to those external sources, you can do that in Analysis Studio. And then the unstructured text component is an add-on that's called Text Chart.
Okay, now you mentioned the analysis, the I2 Analysis Hub.
Yep.
Was that demonstrated at all here, or is that the connectors that you're talking about?
So yeah, so the Analysis Hub in the old world was Enterprise Insight Analysis, or EIA. So that's the intelligence repository, which is called the information store, which is part of that software package. Nothing that Jean-Marc demonstrated was data that was ingested into the information store in Analysis Hub.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah, you bet. All right, awesome. Well, nothing else seen. So thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate you joining today. It was a pleasure as always. And we look forward to hopefully seeing you at some of these upcoming events and upcoming webinars. So thanks so much for your time today. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more. Okay, so Jean-Marc, the question is, how do the entities links auto rotate in the chart area?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Let me just share my screen again. Hold on. Can you share my screen? Can you see my screen right?
Yeah, we're good, Jean-Marc.
Okay, well, they don't automatically rotate is, so the way to rearrange them is through the Arrange tab. However, you can actually customize a lot of these clicks. So really what I do is I have some keyboard. So if I go to the Arrange tab, I have some keyboard shortcuts for a lot of them. So that's what you've seen, right? It just didn't change by magic. It's just I'm using my keyboard and some of the shortcut to change the layout of my chart. So if I pick Wanda, for example, I could just go to the organizational layout, but if I just click on my keyboard, it's just going to change like that. I should have mentioned that before. Sometimes I get so used to that I forget I have them available. But thanks for the question. Hopefully that answer. But yeah, if you have not, there's a lot of shortcuts that either you can put in the ribbon at the top, or that you can configure within the keyboard customization features.
Great. Okay. All right. Well, with that, thanks, Jean-Marc. Thanks, Inc. And thanks, everybody, for joining. We'll be signing off now. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Oh, have a good one. Bye.